Ethan Blackwood had built his empire on precision-measured risks, controlled outcomes, bloodlines traced, and documented down to microscopic detail. That was why the moment a mysterious look-alike boy stepped into his path and held out a rare blood-type DNA test, the billionaire felt something dangerously unfamiliar loosen inside his chest. Not fear. Recognition. The private corridor outside the medical diagnostics wing was quiet, insulated from the rest of the institute Ethan funded and controlled. Glass walls reflected his tailored suit, his composed posture, the practiced stillness of a man used to command. Then the reflection fractured, interrupted by a child standing where no child should be. The boy was small, maybe 10, dressed plainly, but his face stopped Ethan cold. The resemblance was precise, almost surgical. The same angular jaw Ethan had seen in old photographs. The same gray eyes that had unsettled doctors when Ethan was young. Even the faint scar above the left eyebrow, an accident from childhood Ethan hadn't thought about in years, was there. Like a signature copied to perfectly. The boy didn't look impressed. He didn't look afraid either. "Mr. Blackwood," he said softly. Ethan's eyes narrowed. "Who are you?" The boy hesitated, not because he didn't know the answer, but because he was choosing how much of it to reveal. That pause measured, practiced, felt wrong for someone his age. "My name is Lucas," he said. Lucas Hale. The surname struck a nerve Ethan didn't realize was still exposed. Margaret Hale, his guardian. The woman who had signed his medical permissions when he was unconscious at 23, when his heart had nearly failed and Blackwood Biotech had still been a fragile idea clinging to survival. She had been meticulous, protective to protective. Some might have said. Lucas extended the envelope. It was thick, clinical, stamped in red letters that Ethan knew by heart. Rare blood type DNA analysis. Ethan didn't take it immediately. His blood type was in public. It wasn't even shared within most of his company. AB negative, with an unusual genetic marker rare enough to shape his childhood. Rare enough to inspire early research that later became his empire. "Where did you get this?" Ethan asked. Lucas's fingers tightened briefly, then relaxed. "They told me to give it to you," he said. When the doctors couldn't ignore it anymore, that line landed too cleanly. As if rehearsed by adults who understood consequences, Ethan took the envelope and sighed. The first page was already exposed. As though someone wanted to remove the option of delay. Paternal DNA match, 99.97%. The corridor felt smaller. "This is impossible," Ethan said. "More to the walls than the boy." Lucas shook his head once. "That's what they said at first. A beat. Then they stopped." Ethan looked at the child again, not just the resemblance now, but the restraint, the quiet vigilance of someone raised to wait, raised to be careful, raised with a truth he hadn't been allowed to touch. In that moment, the billionaire understood something he couldn't yet name. This DNA test wasn't asking a question. It was answering one someone had buried long ago. Ethan did not invite Lucas to sit down. Not because he didn't want to, but because sitting would make this real. The corridor felt suddenly too public. Doctors passed at a distance, unaware that the foundation of Blackwood Biotech was quietly cracking a few feet away. Ethan turned and walked, not checking whether the boy followed. He already knew Lucas would. Some instincts didn't need testing. Inside his private consultation room, Ethan closed the door and activated the privacy seal. The soft hum that followed was familiar, comforting. Silence was something he could still control. "Who told you to come here?" Ethan asked, placing the DNA file on the table but not opening it again. Lucas remained standing. He didn't wander, didn't touch anything. His eyes tracked the room the way Ethan's used to, quick, assessing, storing details that might matter later. "Dr. Whitmore," Lucas said. "And someone else." The hesitation was deliberate. Ethan's jaw tightened. Whitmore had been on his medical team for years. Loyal, careful, the kind of man who didn't make mistakes. "Someone else who?" Ethan pressed. Lucas shook his head. "She said I should only tell you after you believed the tests." She. The word stirred something old and uneasy. Margaret Hale had used silence the same way, never lying, never revealing too much, always deciding when Ethan was ready to know something he hadn't asked. Ethan opened the file again despite himself. The data was exhaustive. Too exhaustive. Blood markers, genome mapping, longitudinal projections. This wasn't a casual test. It had been monitored, updated, watched. "How long?" Ethan asked quietly. Lucas understood the question. As long as I can remember. Ethan leaned back, his mind racing. His childhood flickered in fragments. White hospital rooms, doctors speaking in hushed tones, Margaret's hand steady on his shoulder as she signed documents he was too young to read. He remembered waking once after surgery to hear raised voices outside his room. Margaret's voice had been calm, but unyielding. He doesn't need to know that. At the time, he had assumed she meant prognosis. Now, he wasn't so sure. You live with her? Ethan asked. Lucas nodded. I did. The past tense hung there. She said I was special. Lucas continued, carefully neutral. That my blood was rare. That I needed to be careful. Who knew? Ethan's eyes lifted sharply. Why? Lucas met his gaze. Because people don't protect what they don't own. The sentence was too sharp for a child to learn. Ethan exhaled slowly. This wasn't coincidence. This wasn't fate. This was something constructed layer by layer while he'd been busy building an empire. Do you know what this means? Ethan asked out. Lucas hesitated. Not from ignorance, but restraint. I know what it could mean. A pause. I don't know what you'll choose to do with it. That was the real question. Ethan glanced at the DNA test again, then at the boy whose face mirrored his own past. Somewhere deep beneath the billionaire's composure, something fragile shifted, an early warning tremor before collapse. Outside the sealed room, a monitor chimed softly, flashing Ethan's latest cardiac readings. Neither of them noticed. Ethan poured himself a glass of water, but didn't drink. His eyes remained fixed on Lucas, who now leaned slightly against the wall, small frame tense, hands clenched as if bracing for impact. The resemblance was uncanny, but more than that, it was unsettling. Lucas carried a presence Ethan remembered from somewhere deep. A combination of patience and quiet intelligence he himself had cultivated only after years of learning to survive in a world built for the ruthless. You've been trained, Ethan said slowly. Not just to obey, but to wait. To know exactly when to speak. Lucas shrugged, expression neutral. I was told it was important. That timing mattered. Ethan's mind spun. Margaret Hale, the woman who had been his guardian, his legal trustee, his shield when the world had felt too sharp for him at 23. She had raised him with rules and rituals, always one step ahead of danger. And apparently she had repeated the pattern with Lucas. The boy had been molded, protected, hidden just as Ethan had once been. Flashbacks blurred into his thoughts. A young Ethan, curled under sterile sheets in a hospital room, hearing Margaret's voice over a nurse's instructions. She had signed consent forms he couldn't understand, making decisions that had shaped his entire life. Decisions he had assumed were for his health, his safety. Now, he realized, perhaps some had been for something far more calculated. Something connected to Lucas. What did she tell you about me? Ethan asked, his voice quieter than usual, almost vulnerable. The billionaire's control faltered. He felt the weight of decades pressing down on him. Lucas met his gaze steadily. She said, you would understand when it mattered. That my blood, my body, was special. That it was yours in a way, even if I didn't belong to you yet. Ethan flinched. The ear tightening. Special. Belonged. Those words carried a legacy of secrets, of scientific manipulation, and the faintest taste of betrayal. You've been monitored, Ethan said. More statement than question. Your tests. Your blood markers. Someone's been tracking you for years. Lucas's eyes flickered briefly. A subtle confirmation. She said it had to be precise. No mistakes. Attention hung between them, not just of parent and child, but of two lives meticulously crafted without consent, colliding in the same room for the first time. The boy wasn't asking. He was delivering. And Ethan understood that the delivery carried stakes far beyond curiosity. It carried survival, inheritance, and the truth buried beneath decades of controlled secrecy. Ethan leaned back in his chair, fingers pressed to his forehead. Do you even know why you're here? He asked. And for a moment, Lucas's calm demeanor wavered, a shadow of doubt crossing his features. I know why she sent me, Lucas said softly. But I don't know if you'll accept it. Ethan's gaze hardened. Years of commanding businesses, negotiating life and death contracts, and controlling outcomes didn't prepare him for this. The envelope on the table wasn't just a document. It was a key, a map, and a warning all in one. And the boy, his mirror, his unknown, was both the messenger and the gatekeeper. Outside, the hallway hummed with life. Staff moved past obliviously, unaware that in that small room, the foundation of Blackwood Biotech, of Ethan's life, was quietly being questioned. And the boy paused, waiting, reminded him of one truth he couldn't ignore: some secrets never stay buried. No matter how carefully they're hidden. Ethan picked up the DNA file again, flipping through pages as though the weight of the paper could anchor him against the storm of realization. Charts, genome mapping, and medical notations stared back at him, precise and clinical, yet carrying the undeniable mark of deliberate human intention. Someone had orchestrated this. Someone had designed it to reach him now. And Lucas, quiet and poised, was the vessel of that orchestration. "You know, it's not just the blood," Ethan said finally, his voice low, almost shaking. "It's the genetic markers, the sequences. No one outside my closest circle should even be aware of them." He paused, studying Lucas. "And yet here you are. Do you understand the implications of what you're holding?" Lucas nodded slowly, his small hands folded in front of him. "I was told it's important, that it could change everything." Ethan leaned back, letting the leather of his chair press against his shoulders. Memories flooded him: hospital rooms bathed in sterile light, doctors whispering in corridors, Margaret Hale standing over him, signing forms he couldn't yet comprehend. She had been his guardian, protector, and secretly, the only person with the knowledge to manipulate the course of his life. Margaret had always operated in silence, her decisions a mixture of love, strategy, and an unspoken code of control. "Do you know why she kept you hidden?" Ethan asked, more to himself than to the boy. "Do you understand why your existence was never meant to intersect with mine until this moment?" Lucas's gray eyes, so much like Ethan's own, held a quiet intelligence. "She said it was for safety. That some truths could be dangerous if revealed too soon." Ethan's chest tightened. Dangerous. That word carried weight. Not just physical danger, but the peril of truth, reputation, and power all entwined. He remembered his 20s, the years when Margaret's decisions had shielded him from corporate predators, medical crises, and financial ruin. Every time he had thought he was acting independently, she had been several steps ahead, shaping outcomes in ways he hadn't realized. Now it became clear that she had done the same for Lucas. "You were prepared," Ethan said softly. "Prepared to wait. Prepared to deliver. All because she knew. One day, I would need this." He tapped the envelope. Or maybe not need it. Maybe it was just time for the truth. Lucas shifted slightly, the faintest flicker of uncertainty crossing his otherwise composed features. "I don't know if you'll accept it, or if you even want it." Ethan's eyes narrowed. The boy's words hit harder than any business rival, harder than any betrayal in a boardroom. It was one thing to control companies, strategies, and outcomes. It was another to confront a life carefully constructed without consent, now laid bare by someone he could not ignore. For the first time in decades, Ethan felt the fragile tremor of vulnerability. He was a man used to holding power, to dictating terms, to shaping reality with intellect and resources. But here, in this quiet room with a child who mirrored him perfectly, he was confronted with a truth no contract, no fortune, and no calculation could alter. Some secrets have a way of insisting on being revealed, whether you are ready or not. The corridor outside continued its hum of normality, oblivious. But inside, time slowed. The DNA file, the boy, the years of orchestrated secrecy, it all converged. Ethan understood, in a sudden, undeniable clarity, that nothing would ever be the same. "Then tell me everything," Ethan said, his voice firm now, his billionaire composure slowly returning. "Start from the beginning. Every hidden choice. Every reason why you exist." Lucas nodded. And as he began, the room seemed to shrink, the outside world fading, leaving only truth and the impossible bond of mirrored lives. Lucas's voice was calm, measured, almost rehearsed, but each word carried the weight of years he had spent living in silence. "I was born to be hidden," he began. "Not by accident, not by fate, but because she said the world wasn't ready to understand. My blood, my markers, they are rare, too rare. And someone decided long ago that I could not exist openly." Ethan listened, each sentence striking deeper than any boardroom betrayal he had ever endured. Memories of Margaret Hale came rushing back, the woman who had been more parent than guardian, more strategist than nurturer. She had a way of making the impossible seem routine, a way of arranging lives with precision and care, her eyes always scanning for risks no one else could see. Ethan had thought she had shaped only him. Now, he realized she had done the same for Lucas. Why? Ethan asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Why me? Why now? Lucas hesitated, a flicker of uncertainty in his gray eyes. She said you would need to know. That my existence. It would matter when the time came. That some truths, if delayed too long, would become dangerous. Ethan's mind flashed back decades. He was 12, sick, fragile, dependent on Margaret's decisions for survival. He remembered the night she had stayed by his bedside, refusing to sleep, signing forms he didn't understand, whispering reassurances he barely comprehended. He had trusted her completely, assuming all choices were for his benefit. Now, he understood the layers she had built. The network of secrets, the calculated preparation for a future she could not fully explain. I see, Ethan said, his fingers tapping nervously on the table. You've been trained, prepared, molded. Every move, every pause, every look. You've lived in shadows so that one day you could deliver this truth. Lucas nodded. Yes. She said it was important to wait, to make sure I was ready, that I would recognize when it was the right moment, and that you would understand when you saw the results. Ethan's chest tightened. He had lived decades believing he controlled his life, his decisions, his legacy. Yet here was a boy 10 years old, yet carrying the weight of secrets decades in the making, holding a key to a truth Ethan had never imagined. The DNA fall lay between them like a bridge between worlds, one of calculated concealment, one of discovery, one of life-altering revelation. You've been watched, Ethan said softly, almost a whisper. Every marker, every reading, every change. Someone monitored it all. Even before you were old enough to remember. Lucas's eyes did not waver. I know. She said it was necessary. That my blood could save someone. Or destroy someone if revealed too early. I was protected. Ethan leaned back, exhaling slowly. The billionaire who had spent his life mastering every outcome, calculating every risk, realizing no one could touch him without warning, he now faced a variable beyond his control. A child, his mirror image, carrying a truth buried for decades. And in that moment, he realized Margaret had orchestrated this entire sequence not just for protection, but for a reckoning. Then it's time, Ethan said finally. Time for the truth to be seen. And for you to tell it, Lucas. Start from the beginning. Every hidden reason. Every secret she kept. Nothing can be left out. Lucas nodded, a faint weight lifting from his shoulders, as if he had been waiting decades for permission to speak. And at last, the world was ready to listen. Lucas began slowly, carefully, each word deliberate, as though measuring the impact before releasing it. I was born in a facility, he said. Not a hospital, not a home. A place designed for monitoring, for experiments. They said it was research. That my blood, my genetic markers, were too valuable to leave to chance. Ethan's chest tightened. The words dragged him back decades, to nights when he had lain in hospital beds, overhearing nurses whispering about trials, grants, and experiments he didn't understand. Margaret Hale had always been there, calm, authoritative, a shield against the chaos. She had protected him then, but had she protected him from the same fate Lucas had endured? They monitored me from birth, Lucas continued. Everything, my health, my growth, my markers. They said it was for science. But she taught me to be careful, to move without leaving evidence, to wait until I was ready. Ethan leaned forward, absorbing each syllable. He remembered Margaret's meticulous instructions in his youth, lessons that had seemed mundane at the time, how to read people, how to anticipate danger, how to protect himself in ways that were invisible to others. Now, he realized those lessons had been passed to Lucas, adapted, refined, designed to produce not just obedience, but survival. You were molded, Ethan said quietly. Your childhood was not your own. Every choice someone made for you, every path, predetermined. Lucas's eyes flickered. Yes, but she said it was necessary, that my existence had a purpose, that one day, it would matter who I was, and whose blood I carried. Ethan's mind raced. The implications were staggering. His rare blood type had always been considered a private genetic signature. Few people had access. Fewer still knew the markers that could predict compatibility, disease resistance, or genetic uniqueness. To have a child secretly engineered, monitored, and hidden was beyond any scenario Ethan had considered, even in his darkest calculations. "Did she tell you why me?" Ethan asked, voice low. "Why I had to know. Why now?" Lucas hesitated, then spoke with quiet authority. "She said the world isn't always ready for truth. That timing is everything, and that some connections must be revealed, even if they're dangerous." Ethan's thoughts shifted to the past. Flashes of hospital corridors, hushed consultations, and the moments when Margaret's calm voice had given orders that shaped his life. He remembered the pulse of authority in her words, the certainty, the subtle lessons hidden in ordinary instructions. Those lessons had saved him, but they had also hidden truths that could shake the very foundation of his existence. So, this wasn't just about survival, Ethan said. It was about control, about preparation, about shaping both our lives without letting either of us know. Lucas nodded. "Yes. And now, the time has come. You have to see it, understand it, accept it." Ethan stared at the DNA file again, the numbers, sequences, and markers, a tangible representation of decades-long secrets. The room seemed smaller, the air heavier. Outside, the world moved in ignorance. Inside, a carefully orchestrated legacy was revealing itself in real time. For the first time in his life, Ethan realized that power, wealth, and strategy could not shield him from truth. And the boy, calm, poised, and yet carrying the weight of years of hidden preparation, was the one who held the key. "Then show me everything," Ethan said. "Every secret, every choice, every reason you were hidden. Start from the beginning." Lucas's gaze met his. "I've been waiting for this moment my whole life." Lucas took a deep breath, as though inhaling decades of silence he had carried alone. "When I was very young," he began, "I remember being shown a mirror. Not a regular mirror. A full-length, framed in steel. They told me to study it, to learn my face, to know my features, my eyes, the scar above my left brow." Ethan's hand twitched. The scar. A memory he had almost forgotten, a fall from a hospital bed at age 6, a thin line that had become a silent signature of resilience. How had the boy acquired it? And why had Margaret allowed it to persist? "They said the face was important," Lucas continued. "That it would be the key to recognition. That one day, someone would need to see me, and understand everything without words." His eyes flicked toward Ethan, piercing and unnerving. "That person is you." Ethan swallowed, the billionaire voice faltering. For years, he had relied on control over business, over life, over outcomes. But this was not controllable. This was organic, human, inevitable. A boy, molded like clay, carrying secrets decades in the making, standing in front of him. "You were prepared for me," Ethan whispered. "Trained, conditioned, protected, all because of my blood." Lucas nodded. "Yes, my blood. It's rare, unique, and it carries something you've always guarded, something that defines survival, inheritance, legacy." Margaret said it was critical to protect it, and to deliver it. When the time was right, Ethan felt a flash of anger, then sorrow. Margaret Hale, his guardian, protector, mentor, manipulator. She had designed his life with surgical precision, every decision calculated. And now he realized she had done the same with Lucas. The realization that she had orchestrated this moment, bridging to lives across decades, filled him with awe and dread. "You've been hiding from the world," Ethan said softly. "Living in shadows, monitored, isolated. For what? To hand me a file." Lucas tilted his head, expression unreadable. "Not to hand you a file. To hand you the truth. The truth you were never ready for until now. She said it would test you. Not just your mind, but your heart." Ethan's mind raced. The DNA file lay between them, a silent testament to years of planning. The numbers, sequences, and markers were more than medical data. They were a narrative, a carefully constructed map of secrets. A story Margaret had written with lives as her ink. "You were never just a boy," Ethan said. "You were a mission, a legacy, and somehow, you've survived all of it intact." Lucas's small shoulders lifted, faint pride flickering across his composed demeanor. "I was taught to survive, to wait." to know when the time came. And now it's here. Ethan exhaled slowly, a shiver running down his spine. He had faced hostile takeovers, corporate betrayals, medical crises, and personal loss. None had shaken him like this. This boy, carrying a mirrored face and a bloodline intertwined with his own, represented the culmination of Margaret Hale's hidden plan. For the first time, Ethan felt truly unprepared. And yet, he knew one thing: the path forward was no longer about control. It was about understanding. "Then tell me everything," Ethan said, voice steady but charged with emotion. "Every secret Margaret kept. Every reason I had to never know. Start from the very beginning, Lucas." Lucas nodded. And as he began recounting the first hidden truths, the room seemed to contract, every shadow leaning in to listen. Every breath carrying the weight of decades of secrets finally breaking free. Lucas's voice carried the gravity of years lived in silence. "When I was 5, I was told about my blood. That it was rare. That it had markers no one else had. Margaret said it was my shield. And my chain. I didn't understand it then, but she explained that it could protect me or make me a target if revealed too soon." Ethan's eyes narrowed. The memory hit him hard. A decade ago, during one of the company's most sensitive research projects, he had secured vials of rare blood types, guarded by protocols tighter than national security. He had never considered that one of those markers could belong to a child deliberately hidden from the world. "Target?" Ethan asked. His voice carried both curiosity and the weight of experience. "Who would target you? And why? This blood? What makes it so dangerous?" Lucas hesitated, recalling the whispered warnings of Margaret Hale. They were after the uniqueness of the blood, the genetic markers. It could predict compatibility with certain treatments, resistance, even potential inheritance lines. They wanted to control it, to own it. Margaret said the world wouldn't understand, so I had to be hidden. I had to survive long enough for the truth to matter. Ethan felt the tension tighten in his chest. The years of security, of empire building, suddenly seemed fragile against the backdrop of secrets he had never known. Margaret had created a life within a life, a silent chessboard of protection and preparation, with Lucas as both pawn and heir. "You weren't alone," Ethan said quietly, studying the boy. "Someone trained you, taught you how to read people, survive, anticipate. All the lessons I learned under her guidance. But more, you were molded intentionally, not accidentally." Lucas nodded. "I remember lessons, reading faces, timing words, knowing when to act and when to wait. It was all part of preparation." She said it was essential, that the day would come when I would meet someone who mirrored me, someone whose life my existence would touch. Ethan swallowed hard. Memories of Margaret's meticulous care crashing against the present. Her hands, steady and unyielding. Her eyes, always assessing, always calculating. Her instructions, never questioned. Everything he had assumed was survival guidance for him alone. Now, he realized it was a blueprint. A legacy designed to intersect both their lives. "And now," Ethan said, voice low, almost reverent, "that day has come. You're here. Because she know I would see it. Because she know I would understand what this means." Lucas's gray eyes met Ethan's, and wavering. "Yes. She said you would recognize the truth. That my blood would answer questions you didn't know you were asking. That you'd see connections that had been hidden for decades." Ethan exhaled slowly. The weight of the moment settled over him, thick and undeniable. For decades, he had trusted only control, strategy, and preparation. And yet, no plan, no calculation. No empire could have prepared him for a child who was a mirror, a guardian, and a living testament to a legacy he hadn't realized existed. "So," Ethan said finally, leaning forward, eyes locked on Lucas, "show me everything. The hidden truths. The reasons. The risks. Every secret Margaret kept that led to this moment. I need to understand it all, before it changes everything." Lucas nodded, a quiet resolve in his stance. "Then, I will begin. From the very beginning." And with that, the story of hidden bloodlines, secret preparations, and the intersection of two mirrored lives began to unfold, carrying with it the weight of decades of secrets that had been meticulously orchestrated to survive, until now. Lucas took a slow breath, the faint tremor in his hands betraying the years of restraint he had maintained. "The beginning," he said, "was a decision made before I was even born. Margaret Hale and your medical team, they had discovered my blood markers while I was still in utero. They realized it was so rare, so unique, that it could change lives and destroy them if misused. Ethan's mind went back to the sterile research labs of Blackwood Biotech, the cold hum of incubators, files labeled with codes only the top scientists could read. He had been obsessed with rare blood types for decades, studying them as both a medical breakthrough and a protective shield. Yet nothing in his memory had prepared him for this child, genetically aligned with his own rare markers, engineered into secrecy, deliberately hidden for decades. They monitored me from birth, Lucas continued. Every heartbeat, every growth metric, every reaction to vaccines and medications. It wasn't normal, but Margaret said it was necessary, that one day, I would need to survive until the right moment. The moment I would meet you. Ethan's pulse quickened. The thought of a child, living under constant observation, isolated from the world, was horrifying. And yet, the meticulous care, the survival training, the lessons in patience and strategy, it mirrored his own upbringing in subtle and spoken ways. Margaret had been both protector and architect. She had designed his life, and now Lucas's, with a precision that seemed almost cruel. Why me? Ethan asked, his voice quieter than he intended. Why would she wait so long? Why not reveal this before? Lucas's gray eyes softened, though his posture remained rigid. She said timing was everything, that I had to be ready, and that you had to be ready. She said some truths are dangerous if revealed too soon, that the wrong moment could ruin everything, and that my blood, your blood, was too important to be left exposed until the moment it truly mattered. Ethan's thoughts flickered to his own youth. Nights in hospital beds, surgeries, whispered conversations among doctors he didn't understand, and Margaret's calm hand always on his shoulder. Signing permissions, making decisions he could not comprehend. Everything she had done had shaped him into a man of control, a billionaire who commanded every outcome, but she had been building something else. Too, a secret bridge connecting him to a child who bore his reflection, genetically and spiritually. So this isn't just about survival, Ethan said softly, leaning back. It's about legacy, about connection, about control over life itself. Lucas nodded once. Yes, but it's also about trust. She trusted you to understand, trusted me to deliver, and now, the moment has arrived. You have to see the truth, fully, all of it. Ethan exhaled slowly, his billionaire composure returning, though tinged with eye and fear. The DNA file, the boy, the orchestrated secrecy, it was more than he had ever imagined. It was a testament to Margaret's planning, her foresight, and her unrelenting belief that some truths could only survive in silence until the world was ready. And now, Ethan said, voice steady, we find out what all this means. Every secret, every choice, every reason my life, and yours, have been shaped without either of us knowing. Lucas nodded, his eyes reflecting the weight of decades of preparation. Then it begins, and you'll understand why my blood, my life, and our connection were never accidental. Outside the sealed room, the hum of the world continued. Inside, two mirrored lives were converging, poised to uncover a hidden legacy that had been meticulously orchestrated for decades, and nothing would ever be the same. Lucas placed the DNA file in front of Ethan, sliding it gently across the table as if it carried the weight of centuries. Ethan stared at it, his fingers hovering above the paper, reluctant to touch what had been meticulously hidden for decades. The numbers, sequences, and markers weren't just data, they were the story of a child molded in secrecy, a legacy kept from the world, and a reflection of his own rare blood. You need to see it, Lucas said softly. Every sequence, every marker. Margaret said you'd understand why it had to remain hidden, and why it had to be revealed now. Ethan's gaze softened, memories cascading. A hospital hallway when he was 12, nurses whispering behind closed doors. Margaret Hale standing firm, refusing to let them disclose details about his rare blood type, her eyes hard but gentle. He had thought she was protecting him. Now, he realized she had been protecting more than one life. He picked up the file, scanning the sequences. His breath caught. The rare markers, the genetic compatibility, they were beyond anything he had ever theorized, and they perfectly aligned with his own blood. His reflection, mirrored in Lucas, extended not just to appearance, but to destiny itself. So it's true, Ethan whispered, voice barely audible. You carry my blood. Lucas nodded. Not just blood. Part of the legacy. She said it would take both of us to understand it fully. That my existence. Your understanding. We're connected. That one day, the truth would need to surface. Ethan's mind flashed to Margaret's last instructions before she disappeared from his life months ago. Her letter, carefully folded, contained nothing but hints and warnings. Timing matters. Trust no one outside the circle. Prepare for what you cannot yet know. Now he understood. Everything his childhood, his empire, his obsession with rare blood types had been preparation for this convergence. I don't know if I can handle it, Ethan admitted, the billionaire armor cracking. Decades of secrets. And now the truth lies in front of me, and it's more than I imagined. Lucas stepped closer, small frame mirroring Ethan's own posture from years ago, a child learning to take command of his destiny. She said the world would try to take it from me, that people would see my blood as power, as currency, as leverage. But you'll understand it isn't just that. It's connection. It's survival. It's choice. Ethan exhaled, folding the paper with deliberate care, a silent acknowledgement of the decades-long planning that had brought them here. He realized that Margaret's genius had been in creating not only protection but purpose. He remembered nights she had stayed awake at his bedside, her presence a shield. Nights she had ensured Lucas survived, and seen and unheard, shaped by the same meticulous hand. Then we move forward, Ethan said finally. Together. I need to know every hidden choice, every risk she took. No detail left out. Lucas's eyes glimmered. I've waited my whole life for this moment. And now, it begins. Outside, the hum of the world continued, oblivious. Inside the room, two lives, genetically and spiritually mirrored, were poised at the threshold of a new reality. The past, meticulously orchestrated and hidden for decades, now unfolded. Secrets that could have destroyed them, instead connected them. And the rare blood, once a source of isolation, fear, and secrecy, was now the bridge between two lives. One that would change everything. Ethan looked at Lucas, mirrored in face, blood, and destiny, and whispered, Margaret was right. Timing matters. And some truths are too powerful to stay hidden forever. Lucas nodded. And now, we write the next chapter. For the first time, the billionaire and the mysterious boy, reflections of each other, felt the weight of legacy and the freedom of understanding collide. The hidden truth had finally surfaced, and the world would never be the same.